A couple of days ago, I got a call from my mum, and she was basically asking whether my brother, who's in year 10 right now, should do A levels or should he do something else like SATs or something. And it got me thinking, A levels are genuinely not worth it anymore. I started realizing this more and more ever since I came to Canada, as you can see behind me, that people from all sorts of places are here, and not everyone has done A levels. You know, even international students have not done A levels. They've done something like SATs, IBs, whatever it may be. So basically, they took the easier route and still ended up in the same place as us who did A levels. In this video, I'll mainly speak about people who've done international A levels, so such as, Edexcel IEL or Cambridge IEL, whatever it may be, but mainly focused on international students. So, for example, if you did A levels from Dubai, you would be considered as an international A level student. Now, before I get into negativity, there's a squirrel behind me. I don't know if you guys can see. Okay, she's running away. Anyways, now before I get into the negativity, I just want to talk about some of the positive things that A levels has brought into my life. Number one is that when I came to university, I am finding it much easier to handle the workload or the pressure compared to, someone who's not studied A levels, because A levels genuinely put us through hell. So now, having been through that, and now that in university we're facing some similar conditions, it's much easier to adapt to them because you've already done A levels. So it just makes the university process a bit easier. You get adjusted much more quicker because you've already dealt with a lot of the hard stuff. And the second thing is transfer credits. Now, in regards to transfer credits, I'm only going to speak from my experience because I don't know the rules of different universities. But for my university, I saved up to 15,000 Canadian dollars just because I did A levels. Just think about that. Just because I did A levels, I managed to save $15,000 because I did A levels maths, physics, chemistry, and I got a decent grade in them. So I was able to save $15,000 and not had to take certain courses at university because I'd already studied that at A levels. So while everyone else is taking stuff like calculus, physics, and chemistry, I don't have to because I already took maths, physics, chemistry at A levels. So that saved me around $15,000. So those are the two main benefits that I see from doing A levels. One is that you can handle the pressure well when you go to university, and the second one is that there is a financial benefit to that, which is that you may potentially get transfer credits. Now, this is only for universities, perhaps in America or Canada. I'm not too sure if you get transfer credits in British universities or even European universities, so you'll have to do your own research into that. But from my experience, most Canadian universities, most American universities do offer transfer credits so that you don't have to take the same courses that you already studied at A levels again at university. Okay, now come the main thing. Why do I think A levels are not worth it anymore? Okay, number one, A levels are losing their value. Universities don't really care anymore whether you do A levels, B Tech, whatever you've done, as long as you have something to show for it and you have a bit of extracurriculars. They won't really make it too much of a hassle whether you've done A levels, IB, B Tech, or even SATs, So why put yourself through 2 years of hell when you can just study for like a month for SATs and get a good grade at it? Because SATs are very easy, especially if you've done a bit of A levels and you go to SATs. It is a piece of cake. That's what all of my friends have told me as well. So I mean, it is literally that easy. You don't have to put yourself through hell for 2 years. All universities are starting to accept different types of qualifications, whether you've done BTech, A level, not B A levels, BTech, IB, or even SATs. Following the first point, point number two is that you have to put yourself through hell for 2 years. Trust me, while I did enjoy the challenge, A levels were extremely hard. And for 2 years, you have to do AS level and then you have to do A levels. Both of them are tough. No matter what you put it, especially if you're doing A level chemistry, you have my sympathies with you because A level chemistry is not easy, especially when you get to year 13 and you start doing stuff like organic synthesis. It is absolute hell. So I like 2 years of hell when you can just easily avoid that and do SATs. I mean, personally, if I were to redo it, I would probably do SATs over A levels. And point number three, employers don't really care if you've done A levels, B Tech. So like, I mean, whether you're starting your own business or whether you want to go work for an employer or you have job security, whatever it is, employers, or even when you're starting your own business, no one cares if you've done A levels or if you've done SATs or if you've done B Tech. No one cares. Let's say you're going to a job interview and you go ahead and sit down and the interviewer asks you, oh, what curriculum did you study at school? They're not going to ask that, but let's just say they ask you. And you say, oh, I did the American curriculum, I gave SATs. They're not going to close the books and say, get out of my office because you should have done A level. They won't care. As long as you have the skills for the job, they will hire you. They won't haggle over, oh, you studied A levels, you didn't do SATs, or you didn't do IB. They won't care. It's as simple as that. Now, point number 4 is your financial and opportunity cost. There is a concept in economics called opportunity cost, which is the cost of leaving something. So the opportunity cost for doing A levels is using that 2 years of to do something else. So for example, you give your SATs and you start working on extracurriculars or your important skills instead of struggling so much in A levels. And also there is a financial cost to it as well, because when you have to do a paper, especially for, I'm speaking from an international student, international A level student point of view, because I had to pay somewhere between 4,000 to 5,000 dirhams for GCSEs, AS level and A level combined. So 4,000 to 5,000 dirhams is a lot of money, which you may not want to spend that much. However, if you were to do an SATs, I was asking a friend who did SATs, he said he paid around like 1,000 to 1,500 for SATs. So like compared to 5,000, you can just pay that much and get away. So there's your financial cost, and then your opportunity cost is that you can do SATs in less time and use the remaining time to use productively. So you can build like skills, you can build habits, you can build a portfolio, you can do something to show for yourself instead of wasting your time in those A levels. I'm being a devil's advocate here right now. Of course, there are some cases where you might need to do A levels specifically because, for example, if you want to become a doctor, you would need to take A level biology to get into a good university and study biology, because I'm not sure how SATs work, but I'm pretty sure they don't have a specific component for biology and they won't teach you in depth. So if you're going to medical or law, you can take A-level law. So it all depends on what your career is choosing. But if you're doing something like engineering or something like that, you could just take SATs and do something else, because honestly, I'm starting to think that A levels are not that worth it anymore, because you're spending so much time, so much money for just. And no, don't even get me started, because there were so many leaks this year, especially for international A levels. I remember, if I'm correct, there was a mechanics paper leak in Pakistan, and just like, if you're charging students so much money, you should at least do the correct operations. You should, increase the security, whatever it may be. So at the end of the day, it's all up to you. See what works for you. Take the benefits, take the disadvantages, compare them to each other, and see whether you want to use those 2 years to do A levels or use those 2 years to do something else. Or maybe even instead of doing 2 years of A levels, you might just take 1 year to do your SATs and do something else and be off to university. So it's up to you. It's all down to you. What seems better for you? What is a better case scenario for you? And then you go ahead and do that. Now, before I end this video, I just want to say a quick message, which is that education needs to evolve. The whole problem that I saw with A levels is that you can be amazing at studying. You can be like the most insane. You get 100 out of 100 at every mock that you take at school. But then when it comes to the actual A level, you might fall sick. You might, some bad thing may happen. So all 2 years of your hard work just come down to one single paper, and who knows what will happen in that one single paper. They might pull out a question that you've never seen before, that you've never practiced before. They might pull out something like they might do something, you might get sick, you might, God forbid, you might have a death in the family. Anything can happen, and your whole life, the whole 2 years of you studying that much, rely on one single moment of one single paper, which doesn't make sense to me, because you studied so hard for 2 years, and then you can completely ruin it by just being sick the day of the exam. So it just doesn't make sense. I think what should happen is that people education systems need to test an individual over the course of the year, instead of testing them at one point after like 2 years, because your whole life comes down to that moment. What happens if you studied extremely hard, you spend 2 years just grinding, and you get sick and you end up getting a very bad grade? Let's say you get a C. What do you do in that case? Like, what you retake, you waste another 3 months of your life. So it just doesn't make sense to me. I honestly, I think that A levels are not that worth it anymore. If I were to go back 2 to 3 years back in time, I would do my GCSEs, and then I would switch to SATs. As I said, there is a benefit of A levels, is that it prepares you for something much harder, because A levels are so hard that they prepare you so well for university. Like, I know people who are struggling to do the basic things that I did in A levels, but thanks to A levels, I'm able to do them quite comfortably. The second thing is the monetary advantage, which, as I said, you might get transfer credits and save a lot of money. Anyways, I really hope that you enjoyed this video and you took something away from it, and I'm kind of opened your eyes to see that, you don't necessarily have to do A levels, you can do something else. But yeah, that's about it. Please go ahead and leave a like. You can check out this video right over here, and you can subscribe to the channel right over here. I'll see you with another video pretty soon. Take care. Oh, also let me know if you like these type of videos. I might start doing them more now that I have a pretty decent mic. Take care and goodbye.